Welcome to And Know. This is the 26th episode of this podcast, and I'm so glad that you have made And Know a part of your day today. We're starting a new series at my church called Sermon on the Mount, the best sermon you've ever heard. Now, saying something is the best is a pretty bold statement, but indeed, this sermon is exactly that. Not because of how it was presented, but rather because of all of the incredible wisdom it holds. It's the best because Jesus' words here hold a blueprint on how we are called to live our best lives here on earth. Lives that bring us peace and bring peace to others. Lives that bring him glory and protect us from harm. Lives that have a real possibility of having meaning and purpose. Now, there's a part at the very beginning of the sermon that sets the tone to the entire message. But first, an interesting insight on the Sermon on the Mount. If you sat down and read this sermon, it would take you about 12 minutes. That's it. I'm sure it took longer to preach this sermon, but it's a passage that spans about 3 chapters and includes some of the most well-known passages in the Bible. For example, it includes the Lord's Prayer and the Beatitudes. Those are the blessed are they parts of the sermon. It also includes the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I mean, even if you're not really familiar with the Sermon on the Mount, there's a lot from it that we apply to our everyday lives. Also, the name Sermon on the Mount is quite literally the sermon preached on the mountainside. I mean, I love it when the Bible is that literal. The sermon begins with Jesus going up this mountainside and then sitting. And as he sits, his disciples come to him and listen to what Jesus is sharing. Now, we know the length of this sermon, but they don't. They don't know if they're sitting for just a moment or if they are settling in for a long haul. But regardless, their rabbi is speaking, and so they come to him. Jesus is drawing them near. 12 minutes isn't all that long. I mean, what do I do for 12 minutes? It's not going for a run. I would hate every 12 minutes of it. I could do a fast walk or maybe answer a few emails, read a chapter of a book. I could make breakfast, but would way rather have more time if I'm making supper. What does Jesus accomplish in 12 minutes? Well, he accomplishes the best sermon we've ever heard. And the message Jesus is delivering continues to hold weight for you and I today. The words Jesus spoke continue to hold truth today, and that truth has spanned generations. I mean, I remember who gave the valedictorian speech at my grad, but I couldn't tell you what was said. I remember the teacher who gave us our final farewell. I remember one important line he shared, but that's about it. Now, my memory is terrible, and I blame part of that today on menopause, but it really boils down to the fact that Jesus' message that he delivered drew people in. Now, we know that the disciples saw Jesus going up the mountainside and take his seat. They followed him up, and Jesus began. But take a listen to the very end in Matthew chapter 7, verses 28 and 29. When Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowds were amazed at his teaching, because he taught as one who had authority and not as their teachers of the law. At the very end of this sermon, the Bible tells us that the crowds were amazed at his teaching. In a mere 12 minutes, Jesus had crowds listening to his every word, and even more so, they were amazed. Jesus drew them all near. How? Because he didn't teach like anyone else they'd ever heard. The words he spoke broke apart the laws that they needed to accept. Now, the words spoken had meaning and purpose. In other words, Jesus gave these words life. And know this, I wonder what happened to those crowds at the very end of the sermon as they made their way down the mountainside. Did some take Jesus' sermon and change their lives because of it? Did some think, that was great, but then carry on with their lives with little or no change? It's not the same thing, but the idea that comes to mind is when you've come home after maybe a week of camp, when you're singing, doing devotionals, spending time around a fire, sharing stories, you come back and you are on a spiritual high. But then you re-enter into life and somehow those camp songs and those devos fade a bit. I mean, if you're not refueling your faith tank, the lessons learned will indeed start to fade. Those who were there on that mountainside actually heard Jesus speak. And I'd love to assume that that alone would have guaranteed everyone there left permanently changed for the better. But at the end of the day, it's always a choice. I mean, are we still amazed at Jesus's teachings? Do we read the Bible and still be in awe of this blueprint laid out before us? I can't hear your answer, but I'll give you mine. The answer is no. That's the basic truth. No, I'm not always amazed. Sometimes I'm confused. Sometimes I'm annoyed and frustrated. Have I followed this blueprint? No, not always. I mean, you and I have the benefit of knowing that we can read this Sermon on the Mount anytime we want. I mean, anytime we want. Even if these verses are somewhat familiar, they for sure can have an impact on you and I today. It is the best sermon out there. And if we let them, those words will have a lasting impact on our lives so that we too can confidently say that it's the best sermon we've ever heard. I hope that today's podcast has been a blessing to you. Thank you for joining me on And Know, and we'll see you in a few weeks.